people who are now like, who tell me now, like will Ranveer be able to do what Shah Rukh did? Like, it takes me back to the time when people were telling me, will Shah Rukh be able to do what Mr. Bachchan did? So I mean, that's part and parcel, I guess, of doing this franchise. She was also, I mean, single mother, taking care of Zoya and me. She was working. So I think the last thing she needed at that time was like one of her kids just being, and I was drinking and I was doing like lots of things like that. And in that moment when I saw like the effect of that on her, and when it came to a head with her, where she was just like, listen, I've tried my best with you, but you need to maybe just go and live with your dad for a bit and that kind of stuff. I felt like I'd failed her as a son.
Did it weigh on you that your parents were not together?
Well, yeah, absolutely did. Again, it was like something that would come up if somebody felt that they wanted to hit you below the belt when you got into an argument with somebody in school. But like they'd be like, oh, but your father left your mother. That'd be like a thing, and that would hurt. Conversations about money and conversations about wealth are just, I find them obscene and I find them vulgar.
Farhan, thank you so much for making time for this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Like I've explained in the past, the idea is to bring ridiculously successful people in and talk to them about
We can just end it ridiculous.
Right. No, but yeah. And I spoke to my team also about it. They were like, no, but he can sing, he can act, he can direct, he can produce, he can run a successful business. It's just all tick boxes.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of hard work that goes into all of it. No? I mean, there is. And one is the hard work, and the second thing is just having people around you who understand what it is that drives you, and give you the space and fill in where the blanks are needed. Because I mean, if I'm going off and doing a tour with my band for like say a month, I mean, then Ritesh is pretty much handling the office entirely by himself. But it's not begrudgingly so. It's like he understands that that's something that feeds my soul.
Yeah.
So those people are really, really important to have in life who understand you.
So I'm going to ask you straight off the bat, if you were to look back at your career, where you've done all of these various things, is there a moment of failure that strikes you that you remember as being rock bottom?
There's been many such moments in my life, not just while I was working.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, like there was a time where I was really, really aimless. I didn't know. I mean, I knew I wanted to entertain people. That's something that I did know. But I didn't know what to do about that feeling, how to go about it. I wasn't really good at studies at all. I made the mistake of getting into a bachelor program for commerce, which I had absolutely no interest in. But all my friends were going, so I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
And within a year, I was like, it's not for me. I stopped attending. And it just became a little bit of a wastrel, for like about a year and a half or 2 years. And I think that obviously, I mean, as any parent would be, they were really, my mom especially, because I lived with her, she was really like worried and she was really like stressed out all the time. She was also, I mean, single mother, taking care of Zoya and me. She was working. So I think the last thing she needed at that time was like one of her kids just being, and I was drinking and I was doing like lots of things like that. And in that moment when I saw like the effect of that on her, and when it came to a head with her, where she was just like, listen, I've tried my best with you, but you need to maybe just go and live with your dad for a bit and that kind of stuff. I felt like I'd failed her as a son. And that was like the first time I like really, really felt horrible, like in the pit of my stomach, like she doesn't deserve this,
to be treated in this fashion,
or to feel this way. I mean, not that I was treating her in any kind of way, but I was adding to her stresses, which she didn't need, I think, at that time. And that horrible feeling actually motivated me to go out and start working. So I mean, that's really what came of it.
I remember reading a quote from your father who said that when you and your sister were young, he wasn't so worried about her because she sort of could argue her way out of any situation. But he was concerned about you because you were so painfully shy and you hardly ever spoke. And And then he said it. Then I figured out that he has a different personality that he keeps hidden away from me. But were you painfully shy or very quiet?
Yeah, I was shy, but that shyness also came from being really, I think, like just there was a certain degree of embarrassment, because I wasn't good at anything, So like Zoya was always very clear, like about what she wanted to do. She studied well. She did her graduation. Then she decided she wants to do film school, so she went to film school. She got a job with Meera Nair. Then she came back and started working as a production assistant and as an assistant director. So she was always doing something. So everyone felt like she has a plan, and she's always, when you met her, I mean, she speaks her mind. She always has. My dad also jokes that Zoya was born a grown-up. She was never a kid. So her personality, of course, is very different from mine. But I was dealing with like just really not in my own head amounting to anything. That's, so I was just like, I don't think my opinion matters. I don't think people want to hear what I have to say. So I would just kind of avoid conversations. I would avoid people. I'd be in my room. I'd be doing my own thing. And it's that period of when I started working, maybe like those 3-4 years of working where I really, really kind of started understanding who I am. Before that I was very, very confused about
But I'm assuming also you said that you knew you wanted to entertain.
Yeah.
And you lived in a home where entertainers were coming in and out of the door. I'm assuming that, you were a film family. Didn't that seem like a natural sort of...
I knew that I knew that I loved movies. I, like any other child, would be completely starstruck if you see a Rishi Kapoor walk in somewhere, or Mr. Bachchan walk in somewhere. You see these people, you automatically feel very like happy and joyous to see them. So I was no different from any other kid. But does that mean that I'll be good at working in a film? It's completely different. And again, so because I hadn't prepared myself in any kind of way, so it was a whim at that point. I was great at like doing things. I would mimic actors. I would constantly make other students in my class laugh. Every time, if a lecture got done early enough, where the teacher thought the work that needed to be done in that little session is over, if there were 4 or 5 minutes left, more often than not, they would call me up and say, come on, like now, like entertain the kids. And I would get up and I would just randomly improv something and like perform, so I would do all that kind of stuff. But it was childish,
There's a name for it now.
Yeah.
But there wasn't.
It wasn't then. No, it wasn't then. Yeah. So I used to do that kind of stuff. But it was never, then there was an embarrassment also that, okay, because my parents are in film, is it just the obvious thing that I'll also be in film? Kids also in school can be quite mean, and like a little bit vicious when you get into a fight with somebody. Okay. Oh, you're just a film person. You know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. So that makes you feel like, is there something wrong with the film world?
Yeah.
Like, there was, films, for a long time, I don't know, films were not looked upon as, something that it's for everyone. So there was a certain weird stigma around films, plus being the child of somebody who's in movies, I was always embarrassed, like, is it just like people are going to say you're doing films because your parents are in film? So I would make up random stuff. I'd be like, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a this, I want to be a that, and not follow up on anything because obviously in my heart I didn't want to do it. And that made it worse, because I would keep saying I want to do all this stuff and never follow up on it. And then my parents would be like, why do you keep saying you want to do this when you don't want to do it? So it was just like a weird cycle till I actually went and started working. And that's when I really found my feet.
If I may ask you this, did it weigh on you that your parents were not together? Because back then it was a big deal.
Oh yeah, absolutely did. And again, it wasn't common for parents to be divorced back then. And I'll be very, very, I'll have to stretch my memory, like seriously stretch it to try and think of any other kid in my class that I know who came from a broken home. Like, I'm completely unaware if that is true. But because of who my father was and who my mother was, it was public knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was the only difference. Like, I wouldn't know about somebody else because you never read about it in a newspaper or in a Filmfare magazine or, whatever it was back then. But everyone knew that about Zoya and everyone knew that about me. And again, it was like something that would come up if somebody felt that they wanted to hit you below the belt when you got into an argument with somebody in school. I mean, but like they'd be like, oh, but your father left your mother. That'd be like a thing, and that would hurt. And I mean, apart from the fact that you're sad that it happened, it would also make you angry that this is something that can be used against you.
Yeah.
So there was...
And that you can't fix it.
You can't fix it. Yeah. So there was absolutely that resentment towards what had happened. And I think all of that, I mean, this stuff, it just made me more and more quiet because I couldn't find the courage within myself to go and speak to my mom about it or speak to my dad about it. And so it was all, so I just became really like quiet and started keeping things entirely to myself.
So you started at 17, working as an AD at 17?
Yeah, I started working in 91? I can't remember the year that Lamhe was made.
Okay.
So that's, I think it was 1991.
The kids who were born.
Right. Yeah. So that's the first job that I got was working as an assistant cinematographer on Lamhe.
Such a great film.
Oh yeah, awesome film. And like I loved the visual aspect of storytelling. So I felt that that's what I would like to do. Like I'd like to use the camera in some kind of way. So that's when I was working there, and then I saw the assistant director and what the assistant director was doing, and it was more holistic because he was involved in with the actors as well, with this shot breakdown as well. And with all that, I'm like, man, that looks like that could be, because it's also involving the camera, but there's more to it. And then I started working with Pankaj Parashar, on Akshay Khanna's first film, which was in 94. And yeah, then just kept working. So I was working as an assistant all the way, pretty much from 91 that I started working till 1998 when I started writing Dil Chahta Hai. So for almost 6-7 years there.
2001, Dil Chahta Hai came out.
It released in 2001. Yeah.
When you were writing it, though, was there a shadow of being Javed Akhtar's son writing a film? Because I mean, you're in an industry where such a large portion of that legacy is occupied by...
but not really. No, I actually didn't stop to think about that at all. I think because it wasn't coming from a place of, I want this to be my career. It wasn't coming from there.
Okay.
I mean, I was really happy working as an assistant. I was learning a lot. I had an absolutely awesome boss / teacher, called Adi Pocha, who I worked with. And he instilled in me the value of writing and the discipline of writing. Because he was like, listen, you keep coming up with these stories and you keep again entertaining people in the office. You should start writing. So he would make me write pitches for like brands, for their launch films and this, that and the other. And I would love it because there was a lot of humor that you could put into it and stuff. And then he got me into the discipline of it. And he basically told me, he's like, listen, you come in every morning. The first hour, I don't want you doing any production work at all. I want you to just sit in front of this computer and write. And then after that, you can get into doing whatever else you do. So he just got me into the discipline of sitting and writing. And that's when I started writing the script. So for me, it was just about wanting to make that film. So I wasn't thinking about my dad. I wasn't thinking about anyone at that time. I was just really obsessed with wanting to tell this story. And that's really all it was. It's when that film did well, was when I thought like, wait a minute, I can do something here. So yeah, but that's really what it was.
So what happens after that? I mean, when you have that kind of success, the Dil Chahta Hai success, which informed sort of the pop culture for an entire generation. And I had a sound of Shankar Ehsaan Lloyd in the show. We were talking about the music. Of that.
The music was amazing.
I mean, still current, still sort of, so valid on every watching. When you have that success and you sit down at your computer again saying, I have to write, how do you, what goes on that paper? Because you're already...
but I'm sorry, I'll just share one story since you mentioned Ehsaan and the music. When the music was ready, so we went out and met the various studios at that time who could release the music. Almost with the exception finally of Bhushan, of T-Series, who came on board to take the music and do it. Everyone else that we met, like, completely rejected it. It's not even, they just couldn't understand the album, you know, because it was a different time, I guess. So, I mean, I remember very, very clearly, and I'm obviously without taking names. So the one head of this really, really massive label, so he came in, and of course, because dad was working in lyrics already at that time, so he kind of knew all of them. So this one guy came in and he kind of implied in a certain kind of way at that time that, you know, like, listen, I've come because your dad has asked me to, you know, kind of thing that he didn't seem very interested to start with. And then the music played, and like by the third song, he got a phone call, and he while the music was playing, he went off. And we were like, what's going on here? This are we doing something wrong? We don't know. You know, so I mean, again, it's music that we enjoyed, but none of us thought it will have the kind of legs, you know, that it has. But yeah, it was quite and a great time working with these guys, with Shankar and Sanloy.
Yeah.
They really are very cool. Sorry, you were asking me something about the writing.
I was asking you about how do you move forward from such massive success? Because then you have the weight of fear of failure after that, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is how do you psychologically put it behind you?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, you know. And similarly, I mean, if something doesn't work, you have to do the same exercise again.
Yes.
You know, it's more difficult to do when it doesn't work than it is to do when it's successful, because I think failure can weigh you down a lot more. It can make you question your choices. It can make you question whether this is for you, you know, or it's not.
Is it time to wrap this up?
Yeah, with success, you don't have those issues, you know. I mean, it's easy for it to be heady and like kind of just hang your coat on that one thing and then, you know, like just kind of create your orbit just around that one thing. But it's important to let it go, you know. And I feel like with films, once you've put a film out there, it actually in a weird way no longer really belongs to you. It belongs to everyone, you know. It really does. So that's how I've kind of programmed myself to keep moving forward, you know, regardless of what happens. But I was confused about what to do when Dil Chahta Hai gained the kind of praise that it did and the success that it did. Because like I mentioned earlier, I didn't have any plan of, oh, this is going to be my, that this is going to be my career, you know, that I will now be a writer and a director, or that I will be a director. I mean, obviously, I think it was heading in that direction with the kind of work, of course, that I was doing. But it happened suddenly. It did happen suddenly. Like it happened, I think, way faster than I imagined it happening. So at that point, I was very confused about what I wanted to do and what kind of film I should make. I was clear that I didn't want to make a similar kind of film again. Like that I knew I didn't want to do. And that's really when the story of Lakshya came along and just completely grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and said, come on, let's go.
What a remarkable film. In fact, on your Instagram, you marked out 20 years, has it been, of Lakshya? And
yeah, this year.
And your sister in the comment section said, this shoot changed my life.
Yeah.
Tell us about that shoot.
No, I actually, I think I can speak for everyone, because whoever has messaged me or whoever I sent, you know, like a congratulations on 20 years to, every single person who worked on that film is like, life was completely different before and after this film. I don't know what it is about the film or the experience of it. The experience was amazing. We were in Ladakh for 5 months shooting this film. And I think just being there for that longer period of time, everyone away from home, everyone working in pretty challenging, a challenging environment. Also in some kind of way, although you know it's just a job and okay, I'm just an actor or I'm just a DOP or I'm just a director, you know what I mean? But there is the responsibility of the story on your shoulder, because it's the kind of story that demanded that respect to make. So it really was, it brought everyone very, very close together. And everything that we kind of went through, I think that it's created a shared experience for everyone that I think nobody has forgotten.
Good.
And I just pushing each other along, because everyone had their moments of like, like, bas yaar, enough, I want to go home.
Yeah.
That kind of thing was happening. But seeing then somebody else is like, no, yeah, this guy or she's really like pushing herself. Come on, let me also give myself to it. It, I think, woke everyone up to how difficult making a film can be, and how much you learn about yourself when you're putting yourself through the grind in that kind of way. So I think whether it was Hrithik, whether it was Preeti, the crew, we were all still the people who made Dil Chahta Hai, and Hrithik was coming from doing Kaho Na Pyare and doing, like a different kind of film. So it was very challenging for everyone. And I think getting through that, it matured everyone. Because it wasn't just going somewhere, having a great time, having fun. Let's go out here for dinner. Let's club over here on the weekend off. It was, you had to be obsessed with the project to do it. And I think that changed everyone in some kind of way.
You recently talked about how you got depressed after the release of the film because didn't think it met the success that it needed.
Yeah.
Just the box office success you were reacting?
Because I think, as much as I also knew that there are films that I absolutely love, that in their time didn't see success. Lamhe, for example, is case in point. Yes. Like now everyone, when they talk about Yashji's films, it's always mentioned up there like as one of his best.
Yes.
But somehow it didn't in its time. And so I don't know, when that film came out, I think because of the, like I just mentioned, we had worked so hard to make that film. And somewhere in the back of your head is this belief that, if you work hard, really the rewards are going to be great. And it's not that the rewards weren't great. I think I misunderstood what the rewards are. I think that's what it is. So the rewards were great because we made something that was, I believe, like a really nice, incredible piece of storytelling. And in its own time, it's found its audience, it's found respect, it's found love, it's inspired people, and that is non-quantifiable, in terms of a box office number, for example. It gives you a very specific thing of, okay, it's successful or it's not. But in that moment when it released, I just had, I think, just higher ambitions, for what kind of business it should do. And it didn't do that. And that really, really saddened me at the time. And it took me a while to kind of get out of it, because it was the first time I was experiencing it at that kind of level and publicly at that level. So there's also that.
So, and I always wanted to ask you this, the role of cinema, right? There's the box office, the business side of it. There's the storytelling and the art side of it. And then there's the social messaging side of it. Where do you place your card? Or what's important to you when you're writing a film?
Well, it depends. I personally, I don't think of social messaging if I'm doing Dawn.
Yeah.
For me, then it's entertainment. It has to be storytelling. That, of course, you have to be engaged with what you're watching. So it depends on the nature of the film and what it is how it is you're hoping to entertain the audience. But there has to be, what I'm allergic to is fluff. Is stuff just happening for the sake of, because it should happen in a mainstream film. So that is something that I'm allergic to. But apart from that, I have no aversion to any kind of film, writing any kind of film, producing any kind of film, or acting in any kind of film. But I feel that at its core, there has to be a story worth telling. Now that story may not have social resonance, or it may, but as long as it's engaging me, I think that's what's important.
So let me ask the question this way. If you were to place Lakshya on one side and a film like Annabelle on the other,
right,
extremely successful in the box office, had a story to tell, one may argue.
Yeah.
A lot of us, me included, found the social messaging or the messaging at all deeply troublesome. What's your reaction to that film?
Honestly, the film didn't work for me. The film didn't work. I thought Ranveer's performance was really good.
Yes.
I thought the background score was used amazingly well. And the other thing that I have to admit is I feel that Sandeep made the film that he set out to make. Which in itself is commendable if you think about it. Because I'm sure that along the way he must have met many people who asked him, "What are you doing? Or how can you do this?" And he said, "Nahi, mujhe ye banani hai." So that commitment, I guess, of a director is something, as much as someone may not like the film, but that you have to admire. I personally the film didn't do much for me. And is it something that I would recommend somebody to watch? I guess not.
Okay. If someone brought you that film saying, "Hey, would you produce this?"
No, I wouldn't. It doesn't resonate with me. For me, it's I do feel that the character is problematic. I do feel that. But again, I'm not in a place, and I feel that we cannot tell as filmmakers, as writers, as creators, it's not right to tell somebody else that you should make something or shouldn't make something. I think everyone has their own journey.
Yeah.
And eventually it's going to be, the audience is going to decide what they want to see and what they don't want to see. Because if I tell someone, don't make this, what stops somebody else from telling someone that you don't make this kind of film because I feel I don't like it. So there's no solution to that. So it is what it is.
So I remember doing some work in the past with the NGO that you started called MARD.
Yeah.
Which is Men Against Rape and Discrimination. Correct. And I feel that we're sitting perhaps in a moment in time where that is really relevant, because that's the conversation everyone's having.
Yeah.
Tell us why you started MARD, and from where you're standing right now, is there a sense of, we keep talking about this, but there's no change. Like, I feel a sense of failure that we keep talking about it, but there's no change. We're not able to change it.
Yeah, it is. It is. It fills you with despair for sure, and anger. I think it's a combination of both. But Marud, I started when the whole, what's come to be known as the Nirbhaya case, had happened in Delhi, and I did feel at that time that there were many people involved in the rehabilitation of survivors, in women's issues, but there were very few people who were really, really speaking to men and their responsibility in a certain kind of way towards half the population that they live with. So that's really where it began from, and it was just it's a behavior initiative, or a thought initiative, a mindset initiative of again just signals that go out from various forms of, whether it's through entertainment or whether it's through what we watch on the news in the wake of certain events that take place. So whether it's victim blaming, victim shaming, or whether it's boys will be boys, or whether it's just in terms of it's a female issue. What have I got to do with it?
All these feminists have started.
This kind of thing. So I just felt it was important to kind of speak to men and make them understand their kind of role in this issue, make them understand their responsibility, make them also just kind of see masculinity differently. Because if having control, if having power, if being the one who can't be vulnerable, if being the one who is not at all in touch with anything that is considered feminine in your own personality is how you have to perceive yourself to be, that is not true masculinity. So that's really kind of where it started from, and it's something that's taken me to like hundreds of colleges now across India, engaging with students, speaking with students. And the thing is that you see change on the ground. It's not that you don't see it.
No.
I mean, when you go to these places, you see boys, girls together discussing these things, and they're standing like shoulder to shoulder when it comes to this stuff. So when events like this happen, it really, I mean, it like you're saying, I mean, it just makes you wonder, like, is it true?
Yeah.
I mean, like, is what I've been seeing all this time, is that just, I don't know, just like a tiny little niche of this population that wants it to be a certain way, whereas, I mean, everyone else is just kind of living in another reality from you.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer to it. I don't. But you're right. I mean, it feels when like what just happened in Kolkata happens, it makes one feel like there's been no progress. We're like kind of really back to where we were 12 years ago or 14 years ago.
If you were to take a minute right now to put out a message to the guys who are watching as to what you see today as that responsibility, that interpretation of masculinity,
Yeah.
what would that be?
No, it's about treating another person, regardless of their gender, as you would like to be treated yourself. I mean, it's really that simple. I mean, it's think of the other as equal. Respect sometimes can be a very weird word, because respect is something I genuinely feel that you have to earn. It's not a compulsory blind, you know what I mean, or a prerequisite. I mean, if somebody is, in your opinion, is not somebody who treats other people well, you don't have to respect that person.
Right.
I mean, you can have lesser respect for that person because that person's not a good person. But treating somebody as an equal, somebody that you don't, and especially people that you don't know, because everything is so divided, whether it's status. We have so many in where we live, whether it's status, whether it's religion, whether it's caste, everything comes with its share of how someone should be treated depending on who they are and where they are in their life. So you're from a very young age constantly either in somewhere in the middle of this spectrum of feeling powerful or not, because maybe depending on where you are, where you're born, who you are, somebody is considered more powerful than you already, just by birth, or then you're at the top of the food chain, because just by birth, you've done nothing, right? But you're just considered, and that's how you're treated. And that kind of stuff has to stop, because that gives you that feeling of entitlement then, of feeling like, I mean, everything is for me. I'm the cat's whiskers, or then you're in a place where you feel you have no power. So to exert some fake sense of power, you will trample upon people who you consider less powerful than you. That's what's going to happen. So, I mean, it's a matter of education. It's a matter of just changing social construct, I feel. Something has to change because we are weirdly enough born into power dynamics. We are born into a system that exists, which puts you in a place and either makes you a minority or makes you a this or makes you a that. You know what I mean? And then the world treats you accordingly. It has nothing to do with your character. It has nothing to do with merit. It has nothing to do with anything else. You will be looked at as a woman born in so-and-so home to so-and-so religion or to so-and-so caste whose family is in this social demographic of employment. That's your life. And you will always be recognized by that. So when you have these things that everybody is born into, there will be a section that is resentful of it. Why wouldn't they be? And when you're resentful of something, I'm not justifying anything, so please don't get me wrong. But when you have this kind of resentment and you feel you have no power and you have nothing, at some point maybe, and wrongfully so, there is going to be some degree of that steam blowing. It's going to happen. And I don't know. So sometimes it manifests in these horrible ways. And sometimes it'll manifest in someone breaking out and doing something amazing. That's also, that can also happen. But it's a very weird, I feel it's just a weird setup. Like there is no you are not equal by birth. So, I mean, we should throw that fantasy out of the window that everybody is born equal or nobody's born equal. You're not, because you're not perceived to be.
Oh, yeah.
And that creates serious problems. It really does.
You're a girl dad.
Yeah.
2 daughters.
Yes.
Is that a daunting thing? You're raising your daughters, in such a drastically imperfect and unsafe world.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, the world has always been unsafe and more unsafe for women than it has been for men. There should be no reason for a woman to worry about working somewhere, traveling to work and traveling back, going out at night to meeting some friends. They should not have to worry about this. Like, no guy worries about it.
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, the thing that most guys worry about or their families worry about, don't drink and drive, you'll get into. Those are the worries. You're not worried about something is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And if something happens to you, you'll get robbed. Someone will come and rob your watch, or take your wallet and beat you over the head with something. But this is a different kind of fear to have to live with. And it's seriously unfair.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on that level, of course, I mean, I think any parent is always somewhere in the back of their head worried, about if could something happen to my daughter, could something happen to my best friend, who's a girl. It doesn't have to be your immediate kind of family. But I mean, it is. So I'm no different when it comes to that.
Actually, as women, there's always this, but if I go there and if I come back, there's that one piece of road on which there's no street light that I will have to walk down.
Yeah.
And that's enough.
Yeah,
to
of
cancel
course.
the plan.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have to walk down that one street by myself.
Or unless somebody comes and drops me back.
And you never want to be that person to, have someone.
No, I can understand. It's horrible.
And I think of this entire country, and I've lived in a lot of cities, Mumbai/Bombay offers the most comfort. And I call it comfort because there's always a sense in your head of whether or not you're safe.
Yeah.
But the further you go into different cities and to semi-rural and rural India, it gets worse and worse. There are girls who don't go to school, don't go to college because it's too far away.
Yeah, I mean, I think just probably being the most bustling metropolitan, cosmopolitan city. Yeah, so I mean, there's this. I mean, it is. I mean, I've heard this from almost all my female friends. That they probably feel safest in Mumbai. But I mean, again, I mean, it's. I don't know. It should not be a consideration. You shouldn't have to pick, things like this.
Yeah.
It is unfortunate. It's really sad. And I mean, I genuinely, given again what's happened now, you feel at a loss. You don't know what can be done. You don't know how someone is going to put an end to it.
Yeah.
There won't be an end to it. We were just talking earlier. I mean, there's always going to be sociopaths out there. There's always going to be deviants out there. There's always going to be perverted minds out there. But what is if there is no fear of committing a crime stopping them? How is it going to stop?
Yeah.
Because I genuinely have started believing that it's only the fear of the whip that can stop that.
The fear of getting caught and getting punished.
Yeah, I mean, it's that.
In fact, when a case like this happens, my deepest fear is that we will move on from the news cycle without actioning any change. I personally dislike using the word nirbhaya because none of us are without fear.
Yeah, of course.
Women live in fear, but there was actual real change that happened. The laws were rewritten.
Yeah.
They were made more stringent. But here we are again, and I feel that every time the news cycle moves away from a story without actioning change, we've actually defeated that purpose. This person has been lost in vain.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that worries me deeply. But moving on from, because this is a pit that we could possibly
of course, we'll just keep talking
in
about
terms of conversation. I remember having a conversation with your dad about atheism. And he's very eloquent on that subject. And he talked about how he raised you and your sister without religion or as atheists.
No, I think without religion.
Without
I
religion.
think when you're raised without religion, you automatically question things.
So he raised you to question things.
Yeah, to question things. I mean, he never told us don't believe in God. He never told us don't follow religion if you feel like you. There were no conversations. I mean, we just imbibed from what we saw.
Okay.
Is what it was. So it's really just it was more about questioning things and trying to apply, whether you want to call it logic, whether you want to call it rationale, whether you want to call it scientific evidence. Those things are important, because something has to be provable before you can say it's a fact.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's a theory, and of course there's billions of people who get by on faith, and sometimes it's a strange thing, because when the comfort that faith can give you, it's very difficult for people who don't have that faith to be able to find that comfort.
Yeah.
Because if everything can be put down to God's will,
yes,
then at least you have a reason for why something happened. I don't.
Yeah, so what's that? And I remember thinking, what is that like as a young person or someone, in school or in college, when everyone else around you has festivals and beliefs and, let's all pray together, or it's God's will and this is what God wanted and what God takes, He gives back. There's like you said, an explanation for everything. What do you do then with your thoughts at that time?
I think festivals, as a kid, festivals were like the best thing to come out of religion. Because at least, you know what I mean? You could have a fun time with all your friends, and you got great things to eat and got new clothes to wear and all that stuff. And actually, my mom, we celebrated all festivals at home. So we'd celebrate Holi, Diwali, Eid, Christmas. Everything was celebrated with as much fanfare as the next. So I think the festival celebrating is more a cultural thing. It's not really so much a religious thing, if you ask me. I think it's cultural. You know what I mean? It's like you're celebrating a culture. And I think celebrating cultures is an amazing thing. We should, because we have so many cultures to celebrate. Why not celebrate them? But it's that belief in something, that one entity is kind of, I don't know, managing everything, and is kind of in charge of what's right and what's wrong, and every movement and every kind of thing is as per the will of one. That to me is completely like, it's very hard to believe that that's possible. And if that, it must be also a very twisted mind. Then in that case, given the things that happen, also, how can it be God's will that something like this should happen? What kind of test is this? And why should any person who I don't know, probably was a God-loving and a person who maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you live in a world where terrible things happen to people.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's completely within the scope of human rationale to question such things. It worked at a certain time, I guess, when you couldn't explain everything that was happening around you. But science came along and the space kept shrinking. Like, why do volcanoes erupt and why do earthquakes happen? This is the reason that they happen. There's magma below, and there's fissures in the earth, and sometimes tectonic plates rub against each other. And every time something was explained, that space kept shrinking. But why? So it's just a never-ending thing.
And is that how you raised your kids as well? With this clear line that you question everything, don't take everything at face value.
Yeah, again, it's not a conversation that I've had.
Really?
No. It's not a conversation. I genuinely feel kids are constantly observing, they are constantly absorbing, and in their formative years, within the first 7 years, a core belief system of a child has come into place. So it's how you are around. They've been attending, like, in my office we have Diwali pujas. In my office we have a puja before every project starts filming, and it's something I completely respect, because there is a huge portion of people in my office who absolutely believe in it, have faith in it, that this will bless the office, it will bless the work that we're doing, and I will always be there for them, because it's something that they genuinely believe, and I want to stand with them when they're there. But at home, it's not like that. So they've seen it on both sides, and now it's for them to decide what they want to believe and what they don't want to believe. Tomorrow, if the younger one grows up and says she wants to follow a particular religion, I'm not going to say don't do it. It's her journey. She's entitled to it.
I'm going to ask you a personal question, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
You choose not to answer it. In your personal life, when you ended one marriage, was that difficult given the childhood that you had? Because in India, of course, we see a lot of, we see a failed marriage as personal failure.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it is. It is. It was difficult, and I mean, a certain aspect of it, of course, was the fact that I had been through having divorced parents when I was a kid. I know what it felt like.
Yeah.
But and there was a huge part of me that was like, I cannot do this to my own kids.
Yeah.
There was that. But I felt that it came to a place that if I spoke to them openly and honestly, not just me, of course, if Oduna and myself, kind of spoke to them and kind of explained to them why it is that we are taking this kind of step, that it doesn't have anything to do with them. That this does not, it's not because of them. It's not because of anything they did, they said, or because they are here. It's none of that stuff. That this is something between two grown-up people, who've very, as friends, decided that this is something that they want to do. So that's the best that I think we could do with it. But it's something that, I mean, it's something that I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. It's never going to entirely go away thinking about, man, did they deserve this? That's it's going to keep coming up. And there's no getting around that. That's something I guess I'll just have to live with. But I mean, it wasn't easy, and it did. Like, the fact that it had happened to me as a kid played a huge role.
Yeah.
In how I feel about it now.
But a lot of parenting is like that, right? It's very like, I don't know if this is going to have a, like, if I'm going to leave a scar, but you're just going to have to do whatever you think is right in that moment.
I think it's virtually impossible for a kid to grow up without some knocks and bumps given to them by their parents along the way.
Yeah.
It's virtually impossible because, I mean, parents also have no idea what they're doing, beyond a certain point.
Yeah.
I mean, they understand how to keep a kid safe. They understand how to make sure the kid, if sick, can become better. Schooling a kid. But there are certain, I don't know, I mean, there will always be some degree of learning even as a parent as you go along, in terms of tone you may have used, how firm should one be.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes just telling a kid, please don't do that, can scar a kid, who knows. No, you never know. What I'm saying? So, because it depends on how you were feeling in that moment. Were you stressed about something else that suddenly kind of just channeled its way and came out in a wrong tone at home? So there are many things that you over time start becoming conscious of, but you don't know any better yourself. So I mean, it's bound to happen. All kids will grow up, and kids eventually, they go through a phase in their teenage years where they love hating their parents also.
Yes.
It becomes like a badge of honor that me and my folks don't get along. So I don't know. So, but these things they're bound to happen. I mean, of course, some can be worse than others. But I think, given parents who are decent human beings, and who want the best for their kids, even those parents will end up making mistakes, which, if the child chooses to remember, and shape his or her personality with, they are absolutely entitled to.
I do want to ask you this though. How much of you is artist and how much of you is businessman? Because you run a very successful business.
Yeah.
And these two personalities tend to normally be at, contrary to each other.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult to find a balance. I mean, there's no denying that. I mean, I think film probably, and I would say maybe to a certain degree, but not as much as film. Music. At least, what we consider pop music. Or because here, mainstream music predominantly is film music.
Yes.
Predominantly. So I'll speak about that. I won't speak about pop music and rock stars from different parts of the world, because that's a different life. And I mean, that's a different form of expression. But film and film music, so even music, we are the only two entities that have to keep striking this balance between what we want to say, what we want to make, and how to do it in a way that it is successful economically as well. I don't think I can't imagine artists who paint, for example, in that moment while they're, and I met many of them, they are painting what they want to paint,
Yes.
and they'll hopefully find somebody who'll exhibit their work, and it takes one person or two people to come along and go, wow, and their life changes. With film, it's very different. You're catering to so many different kinds of people with your work, that somehow to find within the story something that there has to be something that is universal. I'm talking about purely from a film where if you're worrying about budget, you know what I mean? I mean, it's easy to say, listen, you know what, I'm going to make a film and I know that it's going to be a film that's for a specific taste and for a certain kind of an audience. It's not the kind of audience that goes out and watches, those what are considered like the very mainstream fare. And then I'll kind of work towards that in a way where you have to allocate some budget to it. Because eventually what the responsibility of somebody else putting their money in for you, is a responsibility you can't take lightly. I mean, it's not about saying, okay, I want to give you back 10x.
Yeah.
But you should at least get back your X back. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that is important.
No, but now there's the other end of it, which is what I call the chilling effect, which is don't do this subject matter. People get upset. People will file cases. You will have like a group outside of your set threatening to break the set. And so there's a lot of stuff I do know that people in the industry are just avoiding, saying, let's leave out this scene, or let's not do that subject matter. Let's not tell this story. Let's stay in the safe zone.
No, but the question is that as a filmmaker and as a content creator, my responsibility to for my work to be judged, certified, lies with the board. Right? There's a board that sees it and says, okay, fine, you want to make this film, it'll be adult, it'll be whatever, UA or whatever it may be. Beyond that, I do feel that there is the responsibility then of a system that is telling you that this is suitable to be viewed. I mean, that in itself is an amazing thing, but that's a separate discussion. But telling you that it's suitable to be viewed, to then protect you.
But they're not protecting you.
No, but it should be.
It should
be.
There are many things
of course
that
it should
be.
Yeah, but
how do you then reconcile with the things that are, but not the things that should be?
I don't think I've reconciled with it yet. I mean, whether it's stuff that we've been putting out from Excel. I don't think we've stopped right now to kind of like really, start censoring ourselves in terms of what it is that we want to say and what it is. But because again, I don't think it's important to, I don't want to say something because I know it's going to create trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go looking for it. That, let me find something that is going to create trouble. But there are things that we've put out there, whether it's sexuality in Made in Heaven, in The Hard, which is talking about the caste system in a certain kind of way. There are things. And again, there was, and in Tufan, we spoke about love jihad, in Tufan. So there are these things that we've kind of touched upon in our films. And at no point have I felt that, we shouldn't do it because somebody may land up, and say something. The fact is that, I guess, you have every person has a right to dislike something that they watch or they hear. You have a right to dislike it. But like we spoke about just when you asked me about Lakshya and Animal, I don't think anyone has a right to tell you what you should
and should not do.
What you should or should not do. So that is something that you have to be able to be brave enough to take on the chin should it happen. But I think the first step or the first victory that people who are out there looking to pounce on you, should you do something that doesn't agree with their agenda, is for you to censor yourself. And that joy I refuse to give them.
You did talk about the responsibility of ROI to investors to some extent, but I also want to ask you about your personal relationship with wealth. I mean, we're always raised to, we're told that you have to study hard, work hard, get a good job, and then make money and keep yourself comfortable and your family comfortable. But we're also living now in a world where wealth has become a really public display, where we have the whole startup universe. We're talking about billions of dollars, and we're talking about, billionaires with very large and opulent weddings, and wealth is on display. There's a lot of things you can spend your money on today that maybe didn't exist in India 30 years ago. What is your personal relationship with wealth, and as a symbol of success or failure?
See, for me, I do believe money is important. I especially, I feel that in this country, and I'm not talking about like obscene amount of wealth, but I'm saying to have money to be able to live your life up to a certain standard. What it does is it gives you the freedom to live your life with a certain amount of dignity. I think that's what money does. But beyond that, I feel conversations about money and conversations about wealth are just, I find them obscene and I find them vulgar. Because it's not inspiring. It's not inspiring to think that somebody has billions of dollars. It's not inspiring. What's inspiring is the person's story. That's what's inspiring. And that story is not about money. That story is about something else. Money is the reward. You know what I mean? So to just get impressed by money, I find it completely bizarre. Because it's never going to happen. You know what I mean? You cannot be like, hey, yaar, I wish I had so much money and it'll happen. It's never going to happen. Or to get impressed by it. So I don't know. I have never been someone who's easily impressed by wealth. I'm not easily impressed by riches or by, you know what I mean? It doesn't do it
by
for
a
me.
net worth number.
No, it never does it for me.
So tell me, so for people who are watching right now, a lot of young people who feel that pressure. So it's no longer about just, okay, you finish engineering college and you get a job. It's about you start a startup and then you raise $1 billion and then suddenly you're flush.
No, but I'm saying even if you're doing a startup, what is the idea? The idea is important. I mean, the fact is that you can have, of course, a great goal that, listen, man, I would love to be rich. Okay, you can have that goal. And I'm sure almost maybe 95% of this planet has that goal, right? That I want to be rich. But that goal is not achievable by just thinking about that. It's not possible. You have to do something different. Something that is going to change people's lives in a certain kind of way. Or going to help people in a certain kind of way. Or then you're going to have to tell a story that has not been told before. If that should be your focus, everything else will come. Whatever has to come, whether it's fame, whether it's money, whatever it may be, whatever those perks are, they will come. That's a byproduct of you actually doing what it is that you're meant to be doing. So I feel the emphasis, even when you talk about, which is true to a certain extent when you speak about, all these people who appear like, say, on a Fortune's list. When you're reading their stories, they're not sharing their company's balance sheets with you, that's impressing you. It's, man, where did this woman come from? How did she become the CEO of this company? Those stories, that's what's inspiring. So I don't know, and that is relatable because it's human. When you're seeing human struggle, seeing human perseverance, determination, dedication, discipline. Those are the things that you can take something from. I mean, otherwise you're just impressed. And if that's something that works for you and you want to spend your life being impressed by other people, please go for it, knock yourself out.
So I have a pet question, and I
Sure.
get the most amazing answers to this question, which is, have you ever encountered true grace from another human being?
True grace. In a certain kind of way, I think, which spring to mind, is like in my work, I can mention, is from two people. One was from Akshay Khanna,
Okay.
who, when I had met him for Dil Chahta Hai, I had met him and I had spoken to him to do the role that Amir eventually ended up doing.
Oh.
The role of Akash. He was the first person that I met because I had worked with him on Himalaya Putra, and he had told me that, listen, if you ever write something, bring it to me and stuff. So I took it to him. And he said, I'm 100% doing it. And at that point, I wanted two other younger actors to be with him. So I had gone to, at that time, Hrithik had just had a film out. Abhishek had just had a film out in the same year, Refugee and Kauna Pyare. So I went to them and I spoke to them to do the film, and they, had plans for themselves. Again, this is no judgment here, no grouse. Everybody has to follow their own life plan. So that didn't happen. So then I had to go to a slightly different generation of actors. So I went to the slightly older generation. And that's when finally, after, as they've seen many 50s में दर की ठोकरें खाने के बाद, Amir kind of got into the script. And he said that, listen, but I want to do this. I'd like to do this part. I'm doing a couple of really serious films. I don't want to play a serious character again. And I was left with this hanging question, how am I going to go and tell Akshay this now, But so I met him and I kind of mentioned to him that, Amir's on for the film. And obviously it'll be really amazing to have him on board because it just allows me, then gives me more freedom to make the film that I want to make. And so, would you mind playing Sid's role? And he was just completely, he was like, listen, you have to make a film. I love the film. I'll play that part. So it was amazing because very rarely do actors come along who, if they sink their teeth into something, or if they feel, man, this is going to be the for the lack of another, the most entertaining role, to let go of something like that is not easy. So that was one. And I had a very similar experience with Hrithik when I was writing Dawn. Because I'd spoken to him about Dawn. We had just come off Lakshya. And I'd spoken to him for Dawn. And I'd said, I'm writing the script and I'm going to bring it to you. And then when I was writing it, I was like, man, this has to be Shah Rukh. Because his face just kept popping up every time I was writing it. So I called Hrithik and I said, listen, I'm writing it and I'm just feeling that I have to take this to Shah Rukh. And he did exactly the same thing. He's like, listen, you just have to make your film. And I just found that amazing that they would do that.
And so now you've written Dawn 3.
Yeah.
You've announced Dawn 3. Was Shah Rukh not on the pages when you were writing?
No, when I first started thinking about doing a Dawn 3, obviously I thought of writing something with Shah Rukh in it, but somehow we just couldn't find the right place to be able to take the story to. We couldn't find common ground on it. So that didn't happen. So then I was like, let me just kind of rethink what I want to do with the film, and kind of go back and kind of go a little bit more into a what made Dawn kind of story. And that's when I started writing that. And then that took on a life of its own. And that obviously needed for there to be a younger actor. And Ranveer just felt like absolutely the right guy to go to for it.
So when you're doing something like this, where you've had success with 1 and 2, and now you're doing something completely different with 3, is there a sense of foreboding that, oh my God, there's a legacy of Dawn from Mr. Bachchan downwards, and you have to make it a success? There's no option here.
Well, I have to make a good film. That's what I have to make. Again, success is not for me to decide. I feel the film has to be good. And so I'm just making sure that as far as the storytelling aspect of the film goes, that it really is kind of up there. And that's all one can do. I remember when we were making the first Dawn with Shah Rukh, we were constantly being told, why you're doing it. Bachchan's greatest like kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
role.
How
And
can you, like,
how can you
top
go
that,
back?
right?
And it wasn't about topping it. I mean, that's the thing. It's not, I mean, you can't top it.
Yeah.
And again, the same thing is going to happen. You're like, Ranveer's not going to top something. It's not that. It's how do you make something your own? That's really where it is. I mean, like, people who are now, like, who tell me now, like, will Ranveer be able to do what Shah Rukh did? Like, it takes me back to the time when people were telling me, will Shah Rukh be able to do what Mr. Bachchan did? So, I mean, that's part and parcel, I guess, of doing this franchise.
All right. So best of luck with that. Now, before
thank you.
I wrap it up, there's been a question I've wanted to ask you for the better part of a decade. How did you get that scar?
For the scar? I was 2 years old and I fell onto the side of a table. And I have no memory of it whatsoever. My dad, actually, strangely enough, it was just maybe like a week ago or something, he was telling Shibani. And he was telling Shibani that, I remember so clearly that he was sitting, him and a friend of his was sitting in the living room. And he's like, and he came running out of the room and he was I was running towards my dad. And he's like, he came and my foot got stuck on the carpet. And I fell forward. And he's like, and he hit the side of the table as he fell. And he's like, and he got up and he's like, his face was just in shock and white. And he's like, and there was a gash and it had gone completely white. And then all this blood just like kind of came out from there. So it's very interesting to know that this happened. And I have no memory of it whatsoever.
Farhan, thank you so much for taking time
you.
and telling us that story and all of your other stories. I wish you very, very good luck
Thank
with
you.
the new film.
Thanks, Faye.
Thank you. Thank you.